Would you let your kid play with fire without understanding both the destructive potential of fire as well as the productive, life-enhancing benefits of fire, like cooking our food and warming our homes? Now, I know that's an extreme statement, but the same is true about our kids and money. Before they collect their first paycheck, they need a plan because money can be destructive if not used well, or extremely beneficial if harnessed correctly. Most of us let our kids collect their first paycheck with no plan at all. It's a life-altering mistake we make as parents. Welcome back to the Vital Wealth Strategies podcast. I'm your host, Patrick Lonergan, and today we're tackling something that hits close to home for me personally. I've got 3 daughters stepping into this exact stage of life. My guest is Dale Alexander, a CFP who spent decades studying money and now travels the world teaching young adults the one decision that changes everything. The title of his book is The Talk About Money. Here's what you're going to walk away with today, a dead simple framework called Make 70 Your 100, and that's 70% of your paycheck. Spend 70 instead of all 100. And that can rewire how an entire generation handles their first paycheck. And honestly, it'll challenge how you're handling yours too. We're talking about why more income never fixes a spending problem, why your finances quietly drift off course without you ever noticing, and the real reason 90% of family wealth disappears by the 3rd generation. If you're building something, a family, a business, a legacy, stick with us to the end because Dale gives us the exact 2-step fix for anyone who didn't start on 70%, and it applies whether you're 19 or 79. And if today's conversation gets you thinking about your own money, your tax strategy, your wealth building plan, what you're actually passing down to the next generation, that's exactly why we built vitalwealth.com/resources. It's our full vault of tools and strategies made for entrepreneurs who want to keep more of what they earn and build something that lasts. Go check it out at vitalwealth.com/resources. One more thing before we dive in. If this show has been valuable to you, take 15 seconds and leave us a review. It genuinely helps more entrepreneurs find this content so they can start making better decisions with their money. All right, let's get into it with Dale Alexander. I'm excited about this conversation today. We've got Dale Alexander on the show, and this is personally relevant to me. Dale has written a book, The Talk About Money, a young adult's guide to the one decision that changes everything. So I'm really looking forward to getting into this because I've got 3 kids that are moving into this stage of life. And I also think it's very relevant to you as our listeners as we think about our kids and bringing them up. There's managing money is so critical. So, Dale, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you for having me, Patrick. Good to see you, Michael. Glad to be here,
Dale.
Yeah. So I'm really looking forward to getting into this conversation. And if it's okay, can we just jump right into it? Like, you've got a pretty audacious title, The One Decision. I'm like, one? The one decision? The one decision that changes everything? Can you walk us through what that one decision is?
Sure. So I speak all over the world, travel all over the country, talking to young adults about money. And I say from stage, we're going to talk about the most important financial decision you'll ever make in your life. And then I change that and I say, I'm going to say it's the most important life decision you'll make in your life. And it deals with money. And I say, you ought to pop back and say, hey, the person I choose to marry is my most important life decision. And I say 30 years this September. So I believe in marriage. But if we don't get money right, half of our marriages are gone.
Right.
And many of the other half are a wreck because of the weight of money. So I go all over and talk to young adults about the one decision that changes everything.
Yeah, no, this is really exciting. So I guess, why does this decision need to happen before someone starts making money? So why are we getting this started early with young adults? I think this is so good.
So I wrote this book. I've had my CFP designation since the 90s. And while that's not what I did, I had an insurance financial services firm, but money's what I've studied for decades. Mm-hmm. And I wrote this lesson for young adults, 16-ish to 24-ish, yet to get your first real career job, because they're going to go from making basically nothing to the most money they've ever seen in their life on a regular basis. And if you think about it, Pat, the first paycheck a young adult gets is the most powerful money they will ever hold in their life. Not because it's the largest, it's because what they do with it sets the habits that are going to follow them for the rest of their life and can lead them to a life they can't imagine, or it will ruin them.
Yeah.
So I wrote this one decision for that moment, that inflection point. They'll never have this moment again, and I'll explain why, of when they get that first job, what to do with that first job paycheck. And we'll talk, that's what this will be about.
Yeah. This is good. So I'm gonna jump in and have you explain, if you could explain, make 70 your 100, because I think this is exactly what you're talking about, and I'd like to spend maybe most of our time here just unpacking this, because I think
Here we
it's
go. And
great.
I'm glad we got Michael on this podcast, because he's this generation we're talking about.
Yeah.
So he can give us first-hand relevant experience, and he's so wise.
Yeah.
But think of if you're watching, listening to this, and you've got a young adult, or think back to when you were 18, 19, and you got your first real job.
Yep.
These kids are going to leave and go get that first paycheck, and they're going to go from making nothing to the most money you've ever seen in your life. When you get your first job paycheck, instead of taking and spending all 100% of that paycheck, stop and only spend 70% of it. Make 70 your 100.
Yep.
70% of that first job paycheck is still going to be the most money you've ever seen in your life. You're at zero.
Right.
Make 70 your 100. By the way, the other 30, take 20% and invest it, because we all three know 10% is not enough.
Right.
And take the last 10% and give it away. Pat, I don't care who they give it away to.
Yep.
Give it away. We'll come back to that point.
Yeah.
Make 70 your 100. And to your point, here's why they can do that. They don't have a standard of living established yet. And whatever number you accept as your standard, 70%, that becomes your reality.
Yep.
And it'll sting for 2 or 3 weeks. But after 3 weeks, you'll never know that 70 is not. What do you mean it's not my 100? It's all I've ever known as my 100.
Yeah. No, this is fantastic. And I think it'd be interesting too to maybe just talk for a second about why today's young adults are facing maybe a fundamentally different financial environment than maybe I did or their parents did, because I think their spending has gotten really interesting. Like, it's so easy now. We have these little plastic things in our phones that we can just like tap, and all of a sudden the money's, gone. It doesn't feel real. So can you talk a little bit about, maybe how this environment's different and how maybe I protect around that? Because it's, I think if we're not careful, credit cards are dangerous. They can take my spending, and I want to highlight a very, very important thing. People think oftentimes if I just make more money, I'll be okay.
It's not true.
It's not true. We've had clients that make $2 million a year, married couple. She made about 1.2, he made 800K. They spent $2.1 million a year. Okay. Like, their lifestyle with taxes and everything included was 2.1. And they thought, if I just make a little more money, it'll be better, and it's like, you're already making $150,000, $70,000 a month, and you're spending it all, that's a tremendous number. And we don't have an earning issue. We've got a spending problem. And so, yeah, I think this is a really interesting topic, because if we don't get the spending under control early, there's always a bigger, faster, shinier fill in the blank out there, right? I had a friend that told me this example about, when he was growing up, he was driving the Chevy, and he was like looking at a Buick, and like, the Buick's nicer. Then the Cadillac's nicer. Then the Mercedes nicer. Like, you just keep moving up. There's always a nicer, fill in the blank, whatever it is. And so it's like, our money will, if we're not careful, just find new places to go land. So I just laid out a bunch of things, but if you want to jump on any of that, that'd be great.
There's a great quote: when you're lower income, you drive a Toyota Camry. When you're middle income, you drive a Ferrari. And when you're high net worth, you go back to a Toyota Camry. So we do a lot of work in Kenya, and my wife's about to head back there. And if we walk in those villages and speak to high school students, I ask these students, if you have a part-time job and you walk in that village and you tell those Kenyans how much you make, they would look at us and say, you folks have lost your minds.
Mm-hmm.
I saw the statistic the other day, 51% of Americans that make over $100,000 a year are living paycheck to paycheck. And 30% that make over $250,000 are living paycheck to paycheck. I was speaking at a school system in South Georgia one day, and a young girl raised her hand and she said, I can't live on 70% of my income. Now, she was on a high school part-time job. And I said, why can't you live on 70%? She said, because it costs me $100 to get my nails done. What? That's not a money problem.
Yep.
Most money problems are not problems about money. That's not a money problem. Michael, you deal your age. Give me what is the feeling of kids your age around just this topic we're talking about?
Yeah, I think spending is a huge topic, and I feel like a lot of it stems from social media. Social media has become so like prevalent in our culture the past, I don't know, I'll just call it 10-ish years, 10, 15 years, where it's social media isn't always reality. So I don't think social media is inherently this bad thing, but you can get caught up in watching, listening to just the wrong people where you might. It's difficult. It's difficult because people are always flashing their shiny watches, their Lamborghinis or whatever, and you think like, "Hey, that's a reality. I need to get to that place." That's kind of what we were talking about earlier. But comparison, I might butcher this quote, but comparison is the thief of joy, and social media is kind of like embodies that quote. So I think a lot of young people can get lost in just the world of social media. And it's just a totally different perception. It's not really reality. And I think people can get lost in that. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on what you think about social media and how young people are kind of going about that.
So I'd say, when I'm speaking to kids, why would somebody listen to me say what I'm telling you to do and not do what I'm telling you to do? And there's 4 reasons. And the first one is highlight reels and the battle to keep up. And by the way, if you back up, you would never know the average millionaire in this country. You would never know who they are. They're normal people. They make normal money. They just spend abnormally less of it than everybody else. And so, when you see stuff on social media, if you're listening to this, I'm holding up a phone, but I mean, this phone is telling us that the richer you look, the richer you are. It's probably statistically the opposite. People go broke trying to convince you that they're not broke. I mean, the wealthy don't drive around in retirement plans. You would never know the average millionaire in this country because they just don't the third highest occupation for a millionaire in the United States is an educator behind engineers and accountants. They're normal people, make normal money, just spend abnormally less of it than everybody else. But I say getting money right is not hard. There's just a lot trying to make it impossible. And to your point, Michael, if we start talking about lawnmowers right now, do you know John Deere ads going to start popping up on your phones or something? Bad Boy Mowers is going to start popping, right? That's not coincidence. And it's got buy now, shop here, one click, buy with one click. And they're very effective. And if you put hundreds, thousands of those moments and ads over your lifetime, it's almost impossible to be successful with that, to make it through that. So I just say automate everything where 70%, spend it all. Spend every bit of what's in your checking, spend it all. Because it's really 70% of your paycheck.
Yeah.
And 20% is being invested and 10% have been going out to the world. So it is almost impossible. And there's some other reasons why people don't do it. But that social media, Michael, to your point, it's so powerful. And we never had that when I was.
Yeah. And I think kind of on this topic, I think this is relevant. I've heard you talk about this drift concept before, where you've kind of drifted so far from where you started without even realizing it. Could you go a little bit deeper into that and explain that?
Thank you. So we are, Pat, we're at the beach,
Mm-hmm.
and I love everybody typically loves going in the ocean, right? Love going in the ocean, love playing in the ocean. It's so fun. Everybody's having fun. Have you ever noticed when you go out in the ocean playing, and in 45 minutes when you're ready to come back in, you're 200 yards down the beach?
Yeah.
You never realized when you were drifting, but ultimately you realized you had drifted.
Mm-hmm.
My pastor said one time, no one realizes when they're getting lost. Everyone realizes when they are lost. And life, most things in our life naturally drift. It's the law of entropy. Our bodies naturally drift to deterioration. Our finances naturally, our relationships naturally drift. Our parenting, really, without intentionality, most things drift.
Mm-hmm.
And so if Michael's out there surfing, and there's a drift happening, usually if I were surfing, my wife would be on the beach. And let's say I call that my dream, where I want to end up, home base. I know what my goal is. And people go, well, Dale, how do you overcome the drift in life? To Michael's point, here's the thing. Your dream has to be stronger than your drift. And so if I know where my wife is sitting and I want to end up there, you've got to paddle back through the drift. And in our finances, our marriages, our parenting, our health, in our careers, you've got to know what your goal is and paddle back through the drift, because life is naturally having us drift.
I love it. And there's a lot of things like bouncing around in my head right now. And when I think about the drift, another thing that comes to mind is, I'm going to say identity. What identity am I putting on? Is my identity somebody that is fiscally responsible, that wants to have peace of mind in the future, wants to have peace of mind today, right? Wants to be able to have flexibility and freedom in my life? Or is my identity, I have the coolest, newest thing, right? Because I think that's really important. If we carry on I want to have the coolest, newest thing, it can be like, if I want to, I might want fiscal responsibility. I might want all the benefits of that, but if I'm not willing to like actually do what it takes to get there, and we can do this. It seems like money and fitness and health are just parallel in life. A lot of people want to be fit and healthy. They just don't want to practice the disciplines that are going to get them there. And for me, like, it's not one in both of these categories. It's not one particular thing that makes you wealthy, right? It's not hitting the home run deal. It's not. What it is disciplines that I do on a regular basis that I don't notice between Monday and Tuesday the impact. But what I do notice is 24 months from now, wow, I'm a different person financially or physically than I was, when I started this journey. And so I think that's another awfully important thing. And I think the thing, Dale, that you mentioned that is just so critical, and I just want to highlight it, is the automation. You have to automate these things so you don't have to think about it. If I have to go pull the lever, or if I'm going to save money, whatever's left over, there's never going to be anything left over. The reason that the 401k has made millionaires all over this country is because the money never gets to their bank account. It just ends up in an investment account. It gets invested automatically. And then people show up at retirement and they're like, look at that. Got $1.5 million in my account. How did that happen?
Right.
And there were those people living paycheck to paycheck, because as soon as it hits their bank account, they don't have any discipline. So, there's a bunch of things there, but I don't know if you have anything to comment on any of that.
So I to your point, you will never have lasting change in your life unless you have four things: a passionate discontent and a powerful vision. You've got to have change that lasts. You've got to get mad enough about something. If you're listening to this and you've just been frustrated with finances, until you get mad enough, you won't do anything about anything.
Right.
When you're fed up enough, passionately discontent, you'll do something about it. But if you don't have a powerful vision of what you want that change to do, it will never stick. To the point of this, if a doctor says, Pat, you're gonna need to stop smoking, and you go, all right, I'll stop smoking next year. You come in for your physical. Did you stop smoking? Well, I tried. I stopped 3 times this year. Well, but that's one thing. But if that doctor said, Pat, do you have grandkids? Yeah, I've got this little granddaughter and I love her to death. Pat, if you smoke one more cigarette, you will never see that little girl walk down the aisle and get married.
Mm-hmm.
Pat, they'll stop that day and never smoke another one.
Yep.
You've given me a passionate madness, discontent, and now I've got that vision. So to say, we need to save money. That's not enough. Mm-hmm. So we need to save money. Why? Because I want to spend the rest of my life traveling the world with my wife that I love and being around our kids and bringing them with us and having the life we want. You've got to have that powerful vision to attach to this thing that you hate, that you want to get out of. If you don't, you're not going to stick with something for very long.
Yeah. I love this. Quick pause before we keep going. If today's conversation about the 70-20-10 rule, teaching your kids about money, or breaking the cycle of financial drift got you thinking, I want to hear more about it. Maybe you've got a question about how this actually applies to your family, your business, or your own money story. Maybe there's a topic we haven't covered yet that you're wrestling with. Head over to vitalwealth.com/questions and tell us what's on your mind. This isn't just a suggestion box, it's how we decide who to bring on the show next. If enough of you are asking about the same thing, we're going to go out and find the right expert to break it down for you. So don't sit on it. Go to vitalwealth.com/questions and let us know what you want to hear more about. All right, let's get back into it. Dale, I'd like to talk a little bit about, we've talked a little bit about social media. We've talked about marketing. I think both of those are awfully powerful tools. And if we're not careful, we can be manipulated by those in an unhealthy way financially. So with that comes the promise of a easy monthly payment. Hey, you can have this new couch. Easy monthly payment, $30 a month. What you don't realize is you're paying, $30 a month for the rest of your life and effectively 27% interest. So can you talk a little bit about how does debt fit into this equation? I've got some thoughts on that. My wife and I have done different things, and we have, an interesting perspective on debt. I think it falls into a few different categories. But can you talk us through how debt fits into we'll say the 70%?
Debt is a thief, and it's stealing your future. I heard yesterday or the day before, you can go to stores, and when you're checking out, if it's a $20 whatever, you can finance these things. And if you got $100 at this store, I won't say, you could choose to pay it in $8 payments over while you're there. These people have to understand debt is robbing your future. Mm-hmm. It is taking future dollars and bringing them into the present and by fractions and taking them away from you. Every dollar that you can save now, depending on your age, is multiplied, certainly at Michael's age, times, 7, 8, 9 times in the future. And when you go into debt, you're just going backwards. The greatest thing about debt is if you find yourself in debt, and I've talked to a lot of people about this, just first of all, stop digging. Mm-hmm. You're in a hole. Stop digging the hole. Stop. Figure this out, which I do want to talk about how to, if you didn't start on 70, how do you fix it?
Yeah.
Michael, what's the problem with debt and what are you seeing young adults do? Or do they understand, do they just not understand what debt and credit cards mean?
Potentially, yes. And part of it is, I think, maybe and I think just the country overall, and I think you might have a really good perspective of this, is just the overall country getting better and the financial system the education system getting financial literacy classes. That didn't exist when I was in high school. You don't learn about these things as a teenager in high school, even like in college or coming out of college. It's just not something that's taught. So I think there's a lack of education, and I think we're getting better at that. But I think I'm going to sound like a broken record here, but it goes back to social media, in my opinion. I think with the lack of financial literacy and education, and then you pair social media with that, I think that's where all these young people can really find themselves in this pile of debt. And it can be really hard and really just discouraging to be in that situation, try to dig yourself out of that. So I don't know. I'd be curious to get your thoughts on what you're seeing right now and like if that's improving.
Pat, one of the things you said is the when I say why will kids not do what I'm telling them to do, the second thing that I say is called stranger danger. Is people they don't realize how fast the future comes. When we're talking about everybody says, well, I'll start that investing, I'll start that savings later. I'll do this and I'll do this and I'll do this when. And you say, I'll do this when for the rest of every decade of the rest of your life.
Yeah.
That's never going to change. In your 30s, 40s, you're always going to say, I'll do this when. And so we have this thing, I call it stranger danger. And when I was Michael's age, I had wise people tell me I should do some things. By the way, I'm not the only adult on this podcast that probably did this. And I didn't listen to these wise adults. People listening to me, I'm not the only one that didn't do this. And why didn't I not listen to these wise? I knew I should listen to them. Part of the reason that I didn't is, man, that guy's talking about money. That's way out in the future. It comes fast. And so Michael picturing himself at my age, at 62, him thinking about 62-year-old future him is as foreign as passing a random stranger on a sidewalk.
Yeah.
And some of us don't even care about future. This is why we don't do things today. I'll solve that in the future because I've got plenty of time, and it comes incredibly fast.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to solve future financial kids' lives today on one paycheck. And so because it happens so fast and we discount time in all this equation.
And I think I was reading a book. I'm trying to think if it was Morgan Housel's The Art of Spending Money. Okay.
So good.
Yeah, I like Morgan Housel.
So good.
But one of the
Don't
things
get Dale started on Morgan Housel now.
So
Don't get him
good.
started.
man.
So I can't remember if it was Morgan or some other book. I consume a lot of books. But the thing that he highlighted was it was actually there was a lot of contentment around our money, even though our lifestyles were significantly lower in the 50s and 60s. You know, we just got out of some pretty nasty wars. People were coming back and sort of setting their lifestyles, and the comparison was actually pretty challenging. You know, because I had the newspaper, TV was starting to become a thing, but it was not terribly popular. And so, I would just look around me and I'd be like, okay, compared to my neighbors, I'm kind of on par. Everything's all right. Where now we unfortunately have the ability to watch the Kardashians on TV. We get to see all the things that Michael was talking about on social media with the Lamborghinis and the watches and the, the lifestyle and the travel and all those other things. So it's like, oh, I need to get there. And if I'm not there, there's something wrong with me, and I feel less about myself. So I better go spend myself into this, situation. And the reality is, because Dale, I've had people tell me things, and I had to go learn the hard way. But it's like I've done all the stuff, right? And I can tell you, my wife and I, there was a period in our lives where we were moving about, and one of the stops was we sold all of our furniture, sold our house. We lived in an apartment, and we had lawn furniture. We turned a computer around and watched a movie on it. This was from the Redbox days. We go rent a movie for $1. We were like as broke as you could be, and
beans and rice and beans.
Right. Yep. And it was. We look back fondly, and it was like that was some of the best time, and it had nothing to do with how much money we had. It was the thing we were building, the time we spent together, and so I think that's something to be mindful of. because if we're not careful, we'll just get on this hedonic treadmill, and it's
when I
it's hard to get off.
when I speak to groups of adults and I talk about that, and I say probably the happiest time, the most content time as a couple you were was probably when you were in an apartment together.
Mm-hmm.
And most every adult in there is nodding their heads. Morgan Housel, if you haven't read his stuff, you listen to this, read his stuff.
Yeah.
He says, just when we reach the goalpost, just when we think we've hit a home run, the goalpost moves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right? And another quote he said, you will never win with money as long as you care about what other people think.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that so good?
It is so good.
You will never win with money as long as you care about, and we get caught in this comparison trap. I define the comparison trap as this: buying the things you have, getting the things you want to match what someone else has, hoping that buying that thing to match what someone else has makes you as happy as you think it makes them without knowing the real truth.
Right. Yep.
And you talk to people that own and get everything they want, there's more frustration to keep it up. There's more anxiety. There's more stress and frustration that it's not the ultimate answer. It was Jim Carrey, the actor. He said, I wish everybody could be given everything that they want so they would realize that's not the answer.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
It's not.
It's so good. I'm also curious, Dale, Michael, your perspective on this, because one thing I feel like we've dealt with as entrepreneurs and parents, and a lot of our clients has dealt with, is our kids get to live a lifestyle that, is not going to be their lifestyle when they graduate and they're on their own. And so I've thought about that from your comment about the fingernails, sparked that comment. I'm like, yeah, my wife and my daughters, they go get their nails done. And when my daughters are on their own, that's going to be a tricky, like they're not going to have the $100 and they're not going to be on my payroll anymore. So it's like, I think about that and I wonder how much of a disservice we're doing to our kids when we have sort of established the lifestyle, of what it takes to be comfortable, and then they go out on their own and they're like, oh, I can't live on this measly $60,000 a year. How am I supposed to afford, the car and the nails and all of the things that I'm used to doing. So I don't know if you have any thoughts or comments on that, but I
want to
think
hear Michael here.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say there's something I was thinking about there while you were explaining that, Pat, and there's I don't know the exact stat. I actually think you did a podcast on this, but there something like 90% of family wealth is gone by the third generation. Mm-hmm. And I think the most the example everyone thinks about is the Vanderbilt family. Mm-hmm. One of the wealthiest families in American history, and then within a few generations, all of the wealth is gone. I think it gone just recently, mm-hmm. but essentially the pattern is first generation builds all the wealth. The second generation maintains it and kind of tries to shield it from their kids, the third generation. And then the third generation, it just grows up in luxury and then they blow it all. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what happened. And I feel like the answer there is families just not talking openly about money, or maybe this, we kind of said before, lack of financial education. But I just think about that example, and Dale, I'm curious on your thoughts on like why is that happening? I feel like that's kind of a good tie into this conversation.
Probably when I speak, most adults come up and say three things. Where was this when I was 18? Our parents never talked to us about money. There's a reason that they don't. And then if I didn't start on 70, how do I fix it? But let's talk about the middle one. Our parents never talked to us about money. You've heard of the Titanic effect. The worse a problem looks, the less you want to deal. The more serious the problem is, the less you want to deal with it. So, and when to your point, Michael, I think parents don't talk to their kids because many of them didn't get it right. Mm-hmm. And so, you talk to your kids about a lot of things, sex and careers and jobs, ethics and morals and all that stuff. But when it comes to money, if you didn't get it right, what are you going to bring it up to your kid and go, you need to do money right? And they go, well, did you do it right? No, I didn't. Do we have any? No, I'm broke. Or where should you put it? Put it in stocks. Well, do you know it's in a jar in our mattress? So, I mean, are you going to bring it up if you're not getting it right? People just leave that alone. And I do think a lot of parents don't talk to kids about money. They just don't know what to say. That's why I call my book The Talk about money.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And one thing that we've done, and I think this book would probably be a great book to read before your book, because we started doing this when our kids were little, and I got really tired. The book is The Entitlement Trap. And what I got tired of was my kids pulling on my hand at the grocery store or the department store saying, hey, I want this, I want this, I want this. And so the cool thing about the entitlement trap is it gives kids this foundation so they can earn some money, and then they can spend their own money. And that's pretty cool. So the thing that happens when we had a point system, you got a point for cleaning your room every day before you went to bed. You got a point for having your homework done. You got a point for being ready for school, and then a point for being ready for bed on time. So those 4 things, okay? And so you could make, and we just did it during the work week. So it was $20 a week you could make. And so, and every day you had to bring, the point sheet to us, and we would initial like, yep, you're ready for bed, your room's clean, all the stuff. And so the cool thing about that is it allowed our kids, it stopped all of the, can I have this? It was like, sure you can. Do you have money in your account? So they had to balance a checkbook. They had to decide like, ooh, I had to like earn my money. Is that thing worth it? It's fine when I'm spending mom and dad's money on that thing because I want all of it. But when I'm spending my own money, now I have to decide like, is that thing now worth it? And it starts to set the foundation for the kids that I think was really good. It gave them some like basic money management skills. It started to set the standard of like, I got to earn some money and then I can go spend it. And then we started layering in some things as they got older and started making some more money, on, giving, saving, all of these other things. Like, we're just going to automate this stuff. Every week that you get paid, the money's just going to come out and go into those accounts. And then all of a sudden you're like, hey, I've got a few $1,000s in my brokerage account. Like, this is pretty cool, And they get to see the value of compounding on a pretty small scale. So that's something that I think parents listening can start to do with their kids. If you got, I think it probably makes sense when they're, 8, 9, 10 to start that process. A little younger than that, it's a little tricky to keep track of it all. But that gets them up into like when they're getting ready to leave the house. Now you have the talk, right? And just continue that conversation about good money management because, unfortunately, we're responsible for raising these, I'll say raising adults, right? We're not raising children, we're raising adults. We're raising, children into adults. And so a part of that, the school system's not going to teach them money. They're not going to teach them anything about how to handle money. And so, Dale, that's why I appreciate the work you're doing, getting out there, talking to kids, educating people. But we also have to take some responsibility as parents to make sure that, our kids are set on a firm foundation moving forward too.
I have just like a follow-up question there, and kind of like ties back to the drift concept and the drift conversation on how, parents, they might not even notice they're drifting, right? They've raised their children, sent them off to college. They're 20 years old, say, and this is when they notice that they've drifted so far. How can they get back on track? How do they get back onto the beach and walk back up those 200 yards?
Here's 2 things you do to that third question. If I didn't start on 70%, Dale, how do I solve it? 2 things you do. By the way, to your point, Pat, about kids, one of the greatest words my mom and dad ever taught me in the English language that most Americans don't grasp was no.
Right. Yes.
No.
Yes. It's a complete
Anyway,
sentence. Yeah. Okay.
yes, no. So,
Yeah.
Michael, to your point, how do I solve it? If you're sitting there saying, Dell, I didn't start on 70, what can I do to fix this? Two things. The first one, this is 100% guaranteed to build financial margin in your life. 100% guaranteed. For the rest of your life, your income will probably go up. If you're working, you're probably not going to have the same income the rest of your life. Your life's going to go up. But for the rest of your life, every new dollar coming in your house, every bonus you get, a spouse gets at work, every raise you get at work, garage sale proceeds, when you pay off that car loan, would you all agree that's new money coming in your house?
Mm-hmm.
You're not living on it right now.
Right.
For the rest of your life, never take more than half of it. For the rest of your life, never take more than half of it. You get a $4,000 raise, you got a $2,000 raise. You pay that car, when you pay that car loan off, the next month, when you put the last check in the mail, the next month, you've got $500 free dollars, found money, don't you? Found money. I can either turn it and use that for good, or I can leave it alone. And in 2 months, busyness, greed, unawareness, the drift has grabbed it, and you can never get it back. This is that decision on every paycheck for the rest of your life. Never take more than half of it. And when you do that, maybe get to some seasons, this is a hard word for Americans, where we get content. And don't take any of the raise.
Yep.
If you're living on what you're living on, don't take any of it. And when you do that, the rest of your life, you're living on less and less of your income. The second thing that you do, the money you save, you have to get it working hard. You have to supercharge it by investing in stocks of great companies of the world. And the average person can do that like billionaires do through mutual funds or ETFs, through mutual funds.
Mm-hmm.
And you talk to people, well, I've got money. Well, where is it? I've just got it in a checking account at the bank, or I've got it in a jar underneath our mattress. Well, why? You need to understand the answer to the question, is the stock market risky? You need to learn the answer to that question.
Mm-hmm.
And that changes generations. Those two things, and historically, you can't not be successful historically.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And there's a whole nother conversation here, and maybe we'll just point other people to, the first book I was quoting was Morgan Housel, The Art of Spending Money. The very first book I read of Morgan's was The Psychology of Money. Love that book. I've read it a few times. I send it out all the time to clients. But the psychology of money, one of the things that's really interesting is if you look at Peter Lynch and the Magellan Fund, okay?
Amen.
And it outperformed the S&P 500 index by like huge margin. When Fidelity went back and looked at Magellan Fund performance of individual investors, it was terrible because they have the wrong psychology. They see the market doing things and they think, oh, market's down. That looks like a bear chasing me. I better get out of it. And then it recovers and they're like, ooh, now I'm sitting in cash. I better go buy in because it's doing really well. So we're consistently buying low. We're selling low and buying high, which is the exact opposite of what we should be doing.
Right.
And it's like, we got to get the psychology out of the way. Again, that's where that automation comes in. We just like set it up. And another fun fact is people that get annual statements outperform people that get monthly statements. You're like, what does the statement
that's
frequency,
so good.
what does the
That's so
statement
good.
frequency have to do with performance?
So good.
Because when I look at my annual statement, I'm like, cool, I got more money than I had last year. When I look at my monthly statement, I'm like, oh, it's down. I better go fix it. No, you should not fix it. You should just leave it alone, and this is where professional help helps, right? Like having an advisor help you manage your money will take all of the emotion out of these things. They'll be like, hey, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to just leave it alone. We've got the right asset allocation and we're going to let it run. And so I think there's some really good psychology in the things that you're saying too, that you just have to put the money in there and don't be too smart. Just let the thing go, invest it in a good ETF or mutual fund and, forget about the thing. So little bit of a tangent there, but I think that's relevant to this
Yeah,
conversation
I think
too.
this is good. I want to hit on one piece that I think we haven't talked about yet, and it's the 10% framework of the 70
Mhm.
20 10 rule. And I think that's the most important part of this framework that I think we need to get into. And I'm just thinking about that framework. I've personally heard about it for a while now. And if you just Google best frameworks for cash flow, you might come across like 50 30 20.
Mhm.
50% allocated to needs, 30 to wants, 20 to savings. Like, what makes the 70 20 10 framework different than all of those other frameworks out there? And why is that 10% the most important piece?
Because it's impossible to feel hopeless when you're giving hope, Michael.
Mhm.
Um, and the 10% giving, I don't care who, let me just start by saying, I don't care who you give it to. It's not important. But I'm holding up, if you're listening to this, I'm holding up a phone. Do you know what this phone is telling us to do? Get more for ourselves. This phone is telling us to keep more for ourselves, to hoard more for ourselves. Social media is telling us that the way to success and happiness is by serving ourselves. It's the world's greatest lie. And if you know someone, or if you're dealing with anxiety, anger, loneliness, depression, hopefully not worse thoughts, part of that answer is found in flipping the script and becoming second and serving others.
Mhm.
The mind does not allow itself to feel hopeless when it's giving hope. You were built with a reward system in your brain. You were created with dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins. When you do something good for others, it gives you a good feeling, doesn't it? Those are chemicals built in your brain to reward you. What if your whole life were built on dropping grace bombs on everybody who comes behind you?
Yeah.
That's the first reason. The second reason is the law of reciprocity. The world rewards. You cannot outgive more than you get. The world rewards giving. There's a great grocery store in the Southeast called Publix. It was founded by George Jenkins, very wealthy man, and he gave away millions of dollars. And he was once asked, how much would you be worth had you not given away so much money? And he said, probably nothing.
Mhm.
He owed everything he had to what he gave away because of the law of reciprocity. And the third reason is the selfish reason is when you start giving, everybody wants a piece of you. Everybody wants to be around givers because they're rare.
Mhm.
And everybody wants to be around somebody that gives hope.
Yeah, man. I love that. And I also think about, if it's okay if I mix in a spiritual component here. It's like I think about, in the book of Genesis, like we were created to have dominion and co-create with God here on earth. And I think about, okay, the creator of the universe, I can do this on my own. I can keep all of my money and try to do the thing and not experience any of the benefits you just listed. Or I can go give 10% and I can do this with God, right? Creator of the universe. And it's like, man, I talk about a superpower. It's like, I'd much rather be tied to infinite wisdom, infinite ability than my own limited ability. And so I think that's, I think it also does something to our hearts. It takes us out of this like worshiping at the altar of money um, mindset too, when we can freely give it. And I think that's something that can be challenging, like you need to practice the discipline of giving and you will find that the truth of the scriptures becomes true for you, that it is better to give than receive. And
in my book,
yep.
I say, because a lot of people don't know, they'll come up to me and go, Del, I don't know what to do with my 10%. And in my book, I just answer it this way. What breaks your heart?
Mm-hmm.
What is it? And I don't need to know that, but what is it on your street, in your family, in your community, in the world? What breaks your heart
Yep.
that you wish could get solved in the world?
Amen.
And then take that and go give it there.
Yep.
And so it's different for everyone, but that's to your point, Michael, that's when all this fires off, is when you you realize, because the world is social media, everything is telling us it's all about ourselves. And until we realize it's not, none of this really makes sense. Hollywood is full of miserable rich people. So that's when it really fires off, when you realize it's more than about you.
Yeah. Dale, this is awesome. I do want to talk about another part of your mission, and it ties right into what we were talking about. I think it'll resonate with our audience. If somebody hears about this and thinks, man, every young person needs more of this, can you explain a little bit more about your 501c3 and sponsorship and some of the impact you've got going on there?
So I speak all over the world. I travel all over the country to high schools, universities, churches, organizations, sales conferences. And the book is called The Talk About Money. And so when I go speak, the young adults get this brochure as I speak and then leave and they get the book. But I actually want to give kudos to the state of Georgia. The State Board of Education actually sent it to all 126,213 graduates for the second year.
Wow.
Georgia believes in literacy and their financial literacy, and they're doing something about it. Where Michael and I live in Duval County, Jacksonville, Florida, they sent it to 7,000 seniors. But I go all over the country. And if people would love to hear this story, and maybe they've got a school they want to sponsor, they can go to thetalkaboutmoney.com and find everything about it. We've prepared the lesson. It's called Just Press Play, where teachers can just press play, and I'll teach them the whole lesson online. They can do that. So everything's there. I think this could change a generation's saving and giving habits.
Dale, this is fantastic. I appreciate how you are, you're not just talking the talk, you're walking the walk. You know, you're saying, hey, I go give where there's a need, and I where it stirs your heart. And I see you like passionate about this. I see you're passionate about changing generations, right? And money is there's a reason the Bible talks about money just about, more than any other topic. It's because it rules our thinking, right? It's easy to worship at, and it's easy to get wrong. And so I appreciate your desire to go out there and just serve our country, serve this world in general on the topic of money and how to get it right. So we'll make sure we have.
Likewise to the two of y'all as well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. So we'll have a link to the talkaboutmoney.com in the show notes, and please go check it out. I think this work is tremendous, and we need to get this word out to our young people. And again, take some ownership in your own household and get this going with your family and your kids, because it's a critical conversation. So Dale, we've covered a ton of ground. I feel like we could do more of this. Is there anything else that is a critical piece of this conversation that we haven't touched on yet that we should touch before we go?
Just have conversations with your children about what the real purpose of success and being rich has nothing to do with money. You can be homeless and be rich.
Yep.
Good health, friends, at peace with what you have. Wealth is what you think of with money. Rich has nothing to do with money. Most Americans are really rich. So teach your children that and talk to them about money, because it really can change many generations that come behind us.
Yeah, I love this. So I think about this and, where we're going with this conversation and our listeners here. It's like, before this conversation started, a lot of people were probably thinking, my kids will inherit the wealth I created. Hopefully after this conversation, they're thinking, my kids will inherit the wisdom required to steward the wealth that we've created. And I think those stakes are substantial. If we fail to do that, successful parents will create wealth, but unintentionally raise kids whose consumption, expectations, financial dependence undermine everything that the parents spent decades building. And we think about what success looks like when we've got, their children entering adulthood already understanding that every dollar isn't available for consumption. Saving, investing, and giving become the default behavior rather than sacrifices they have to learn later. So Thank you. Sorry to interrupt you, Dale, but go ahead.
Michael, the speaker, John Maxwell, said, "You will never drift to an intended destination."
Absolutely. I love it.
It's so good. I appreciate your passion, Dale, and just the mission you're on. And I'm glad that I got to be a part of the conversation today. So thank you.
That's a wrap on today's conversation with Dale Alexander. And I hope it hit you the way it hit me. If you've got kids stepping into their first job, or you're realizing you never got the 70-20-10 framework yourself, I want you to take one thing from this episode and actually put it into practice this week. That's how real change happens, not by hearing something good, but by doing something with it. Before you go, head over to vitalwealth.com/resources. That's where you'll find our full vault of tools built specifically for entrepreneurs who want to pay less in taxes, build more wealth, and pass down more than just money to the people they love. Again, that's vitalwealth.com/resources. Go dive in. And if today's conversation gave you something valuable, do me a favor and leave us a review. It only takes a minute, and it helps the show reach more entrepreneurs who need to hear this. While you're at it, share this episode with somebody who could use it, a friend, a family member, someone who's starting out on their own financial journey. You never know whose life this could change. Thank you for tuning in today. Come back and join us next week for another episode of the Vital Wealth Strategies podcast. And remember, you're a vital entrepreneur. You're vital because you're the backbone of our economy, creating opportunities, driving growth, and making an impact. You're vital to your family, creating abundance in every aspect of life. You're vital to me because you're committed to growing your wealth, leading with purpose, and creating something truly great. Thank you for being a part of this incredible community of vital entrepreneurs. And again, I look forward to having you back here next time on the Vital Wealth Strategies podcast, where we help entrepreneurs minimize their taxes, master wealth, and optimize their lives.